Welcome to Business Connections, presented by the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce. I'm Holly Allen. Today's topic is one that's very near and dear to my heart. We are talking about marketing. I talk to a lot of small and medium-sized businesses, and that's the topic that usually comes up, marketing. Whether it's social media or how do I reach out to my customer base, they have a lot of questions because a lot of times small business owners are focused on the day-to-day of running their own business. They don't have the money to hire someone to focus solely on the marketing of the company or the product, and they just don't know where to start. So today we're starting with the foundation. It's all about brand creation. How do you create that identification for your business or your product? And I'm bringing in the experts to help us with that. So I'd like to welcome today Tyler Back. He is the owner, president, CEO of Mitosis. He's the man at Mitosis. Thanks for being with us.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And it's great to be here in this wonderful community resource that is DATV. So thank you so much, Holly.
Absolutely. They are a fantastic partner of the Chamber. And this is a great subject. I'm really excited about this. First, I want you to tell me a little bit as we talk about small to medium-sized businesses. Tell me about Mitosis.
Yeah, so Mitosis, we fall in that category in Dayton, right?
Yeah.
As a small or medium-sized business. Mitosis is a marketing creative services solution provider, right? So we take on some of the brand's biggest challenges and really drive for those business outcomes. And that's everything from brand to customer experience to the digital experience to even their physical or retail packaging type solutions.
Okay.
So it's really a truly full service solution provider for anybody in need of marketing, branding, public outreach type solutions.
Right. So you're looking at the whole package, the whole picture.
You can't do anything without looking at the whole package when it comes to marketing.
Right. Which is exactly why I think you're the perfect person to have here talking about this subject, because you can't do anything until you identify a brand. Who are you? What are you offering? We hear that word thrown around so much. I mean, it's all about the brand and brand identity and brand recognition. What the heck does that word actually mean? Because I think a lot of people, they think they know, but I don't think they really know.
Right, well, and brand is that big industry buzzword that's really picked up a lot of steam over the past few years, right? As national media started talking about these brands and how these brands are reacting and the impact of these brands, may it be positive or negative. But really, for me, I would say the foundation for any business, even in the development of a brand, comes back to the business strategy, right? And those outcomes that you're trying to lead. A brand is nothing without the product, without the business, right? May that product be a service, a physical, tangible product, or even an intangible product. It all starts with that business strategy and what those business outcomes you're driving for.
And I think that would be welcome news to our business owners, because that's the part they know, right? They know what their goals are. They know what their business plan is. So you use that as a guide.
You have to use it as a guide, right? When you're developing that brand, and what a brand really is the personification of your business, right? It's the whole evolution of what is that customer experience from initial brand realization, right, where a customer may find out or see your name somewhere, what's oftentimes called in the industry a new logo, right? So your consumer or your customer is exposed to this new logo. So once they see that new logo, it's all about the experience through the entire time they're interacting with your business. So the brand is really the personification. It's not just about the identity. It's about what are those living, breathing attributes that make up that brand. Is the tone right, right, of the copy? That's really, really important. It's not just about colors and logos and identities, but it's what is their experience with the sales member on the phone? What is their experience with that point of sales rep, if you're a retail establishment? And even at restaurants, it goes all the way down to what is that experience from the menu to the server, and we like to approach them in a full sensory experience, right? It's not just about the visual, it's about the taste, the smell, the feel, the look. All of that makes up really the brand pillars that drive those attributes for the creation. It's not just about the identity.
Right. And you and I talked a little bit before this show, because I've heard that a lot. When people say, what is your brand? They immediately go to what are our branding colors? What are the fonts we use? So what is that, visualization of what the business is? But it's more of a feeling, right? It's not something that you can necessarily put your hands on.
Right.
Can you kind of expound, you talked about how do you create all of that?
Yeah. And so lining back up to the business strategy, the first thing you want to define in any brand is much like a business advisor would tell you. You need to come up with your mission statement, and then what are your values, right? And those really are what drive the definition behind the brand. Before, we as an agency ever put pen to paper or cursor to screen, as a lot of times it is nowadays, it's really a business evaluation. There's more research. There's more focus grouping with existing customers, prospective new customers, even talking to the inside constituents of that company. Everybody from the dock worker, right, all the way up to the CEO. And what we do is we figure out how that brand is being perceived or how a company is being perceived in the marketplace. It's not always about the business driving, I want to be perceived in this marketplace in this way, because that may not actually be factual, right? So we have to go out and talk to all the various constituents that interact with this brand to get a real sense and baseline of where to start, right? From there, you can start to layer in evolutions and kind of phases to bring the brand up to the level of what the CEO or what that business owner is really driving for, right? Because at the end of the day, that business owner, that CEO, that COO, that CMO, right, and many organizations has a vision for where they want to take the brand, right? But oftentimes that's rooted in a gut instinct and not in research, not in facts, not in analytics.
Got it.
Right? So the analytics, the fact finding, the gathering from the field is really step one.
Okay, so then you know where you are, so you can figure out how to get where you want to be.
That's exactly it, right? You can't just pretend that you're already at the moon, right? You have to figure out how to develop the rocket, what people you're putting in it. You got to train the astronauts, all to get launched to that final destination. So we have to create a baseline. Then from there, you start developing what these brand attributes are. And you do that through personification. So you start developing personas of what your expected customer is. You start building personas of what an employee looks like at your organization. Then those attributes really start to drive your brand tone, your brand copy, and every step of the way, you're charging it back up to that business strategy, right? Is it really being aligned? Are we really expressing this in the best way we can to drive the positive business outcome? From there, that's where you get to start to have some fun. Right?
So the fun part.
This is where the creatives really start to have some fun. Based out of all that research and that focus grouping, then you start to run competitive analysis, right? And you start going out in the marketplace and you start diving deep into color theory. What does this color mean? What does it relate to? Okay, well, in healthcare, we see a lot of strong blues, but what is the right tone of blue that we want to start to find?
So you mean you're not just pointing at the color wheel because that one looks pretty?
Oh, no. No, I wish it was that simple, right? I really wish it was that simple. But, when you think about blues, there's thousands of blues, right?
Absolutely.
A cyan, a blue that's pushing more cyan may evoke a different emotion or a different feeling than something that's pushing more into the greens, right? So where you start getting into sea foams and things like that. And it's really about that whole exploration of that color space. And then, if you're working with an agency and your budget allows, you go through a color theory and then you go through the development of what are called mood boards in our industry, and you focus group those back against that same group of people that you talked to initially, right? Because then you want to start getting a sense of, is this evoking the right emotion, right? So once you have a lot of some of those visual identity foundations put together, so you now have your copy, you have your tone, you have some of the sensory elements starting to develop, and now you're developing some colors, which is huge into that mood. Once you validate those colors, then we can start moving into what business values, the business leaders are really wanting, which is, I want a logo, I want to know what my font is, right?
They just want those things.
They just want those things, but not oftentimes, but you have to go through all of these steps and move down through this brand funnel to move through it. Oftentimes, a lot of our creative directors and our art directors at Mitosis, we talk a lot about when we're going through this process with business owners, especially medium-sized business owners, we oftentimes feel like psychologists or therapists. for their business.
I can imagine there's a lot of that going into it.
Right, we're spending 4-6 hours with these people, and we try not to always do it in a boardroom or in a conference room. We try to loosen it up a little bit, to turn it to a conversation, to take these leaders out of their leader role and more into a collaborative role. So that's really where we turn into oftentimes therapists and sometimes business advisors. Right? Based on all of the exposure that we have cross-industry, we can oftentimes offer recommendations, right? So we know you're experiencing this pain point in this industry, but we've solved this pain point that was happening over here in a competitive industry. You guys have the same problems. We're pretty sure we can apply the same solution to it.
Right.
And that's how we approach a lot of the brand identity systems as well. You want to create enough separation from your competition that's going to differentiate you, but at the same time, you also have to drive for, is the customer, is the prospective customer going to, when they look at this identity, is our industry going to resonate, right? Okay. So, and that's very much different, than a lot of how companies approach this. Sometimes, if you're a holding company, your holding company identity really has no value, right? It doesn't generate any equity. It's your product lines or your other business units that you want to really dive into the brand. And so there's 2 strategies you can take there, and I know I'm kind of jumping around on this a little bit, Holly, but there's two methodologies you can take to those types of businesses. It's either called a branded house or a house of brands.
Got it.
Right? So a branded house, and this is the example we use a lot, a branded house is Apple. Right?
So they're the umbrella.
They're the umbrella, but all of their products, they all have a consistent naming strategy. They have a consistent identity strategy. You look at an iPhone or you look at a MacBook, you know it's an Apple product. Right? A house of brands, Microsoft. Right? When you look at an Xbox, you don't always know that's owned by Microsoft. Right? So there's 2 different strategies you can take there, but again, it all comes back to what is the business objectives and what is your business strategy.
So do you ever, and I think I know the answer to this, do you ever start down this path and you have a business leader or a client who says to you, okay, this is where we want to go, and you start doing your research and then you find out, hey, wait a minute, maybe that's not where your customers want you to go. And maybe you have to change your path because now your consumer is leading you in another direction. Do you ever run into that, and what do you do?
Absolutely. And so that usually happens right in that research phase, which is why we always run through that phase that we call discovery. Business leaders don't like to hear that.
I can imagine they don't.
Right? But if it's grounded in analytics, it's grounded in the physical surveys that we've captured, you can't argue with that.
Right, and that's why you need the data, I can imagine, to back up the decisions you're making.
You have to have the data. You can't just fly by the seat of your pants. Right?
Throw it at the wall, hope it sticks.
Right, and there's a lot of value for business owners going through that process because, again, business owners, you're sitting in your office, you're looking at numbers all day, you're thinking about the operations, you're thinking about the day-to-day, and it's really hard, and going through this experience, we take the business owner out of that day-to-day, right? We have to take them up to what we call the 3,000-foot view level, right? Looking down at their business and going, hey, these numbers are saying, you're saying one thing, your numbers are saying another. Right? And oftentimes, going through that process, we'll find out that who they thought their customer was is not actually who their customer is.
Which is why you're creating those personas.
Absolutely, and so the personas have to be defined, and all of that comes out of that research phase. So when we get to that discovery and we come back with news that the business owner or CMO doesn't want to hear, it's always a tough conversation, but if it's grounded in facts, we'll reach a middle ground. Right? It may change our strategy moving into the visual identity system. We might start thinking about a maturity path for the brand, but then also challenging that business again to look at their business strategy and go, okay, if this is really where you want to be, then you are going to have to make some tough business decisions back up at the top to drive for that outcome. And so we've been through that with quite a few different businesses as well, where we had one client that was trying to go through a renaming strategy. So they were actually exploring changing their company and product's entire name. And they wanted to know what the impact of that would be in the marketplace. Well, come to find out, their customers weren't ready for that.
Okay.
Right? At all in any way, shape, or form.
Okay.
So we put together an evolution strategy where we essentially condensed the name into an acronym. It was a very long company name. And so we found out through our research that all of the customers and their PO systems and their sales systems internally for their customers were already using this acronym. So it became a logical step to go, okay, well, let's not actually rename the entire business. Let's move it into this acronym that they're all already using.
That makes sense.
It'll feed your need to update your brand and really push your equity a little further, but also align with your changing business landscape. But at the same time, we're not alienating the customers. In fact, we're following a logical evolution of where they were already taking it anyway.
I'm going to take that one step further because you're talking about brand evolution. You do all this research, you come up, you identify your brand, and you put all the, these resources into bringing it to life. 10 years down the road, is it okay to take a look at that brand and say, hey, maybe it's not filling our needs? Or do you need to do that along the way? What's the best strategy?
I wouldn't even say wait 10 years.
Okay, it's a long time.
Right?
Yeah.
Because a rebrand or a repositioning of a mature brand, when we call brands reach an element of maturity, meaning they have enough market saturation, they have enough what we call equity in the marketplace.
You use that word. I was going to ask you.
Use that
Tell us
term.
what that word.
Equity is how customers perceive you already.
Okay.
Right? So they may be attached to your brand color, they may be attached to your logo, they may be attached to, some of those value attributes.
Right, they know you.
They know you.
If you're doing it right, they feel like they know you.
Right.
Yeah.
You're walking down, we use this example a lot. You're walking down the potato chip aisle, right? You know what a Lay's bag looks like and what that color is.
Right, we've seen that game where they flash up a logo and it doesn't have the business name on it. Can you identify it? Most of them can. They're good-sized brands,
If you walk down the potato chip aisle and you're looking for Lay's, but all of a sudden their bag's now bright red with a different logo,
I don't know what that is.
You're not going to know what that is, right? So in that example, you would recommend that Lay's definitely keep their yellow. Maybe it gets shifted ever so slightly to contemporize it a little bit based on color theory trends. And you might make some soft updates to an identity.
Okay.
Right? So you see this a lot. I would encourage users to go out and Google the evolution of the UPS logo. Okay?
Interesting.
They're one of the oldest, most established brands.
Right.
But they've had 6 different logos over the course of their entire existence as a company. They've always been subtle evolutions.
So that you barely notice it versus that shock of...
It'll get cleaned up, right? It started as they started as a very busy Shield logo.
Okay.
And what we see today is a very clean, very minimal, simplistic Shield logo, but they kept the integrity of the shape, the colors, the swoop, the tone, right? So that way consumers don't have, you wouldn't even acknowledge if they launched a new brand, you'd barely notice.
Interesting.
But it's important to the consumer base and really to that business to help with that evolution, right? And that's often being driven by what their business outcomes are.
Right.
Or what they're driving for.
I think that's great feedback. I think, a lot of businesses, they feel like, if they've been around for a while, well, I don't want to touch the logo. Well, it's probably better to do those incremental changes versus waiting 25 years and then blowing it up. And then, like you said, your customers feel alienated.
Right.
They feel like they know your brand, and now I don't know who you are.
Well, and to go back to that, your brand is a living, breathing entity, right? You shouldn't be waiting 10 years, right?
You wouldn't wait 10 years to change your hairstyle, would you?
Well, for me,
well,
yes.
Not you personally.
I mean, for me, yes. I don't have a choice. I don't have a choice. But you should be evolving and constantly looking at your brand, much like you look at your wardrobe, much like you change the oil in your car. Going through a repositioning of a brand doesn't always mean a new identity, right? Because let's be honest, changing your identity is very expensive.
Right.
It's not just the design costs you may have with an independent designer or with a design firm. It's replacing all of the instances of where that logo exists, right?
And anyone who's in marketing knows it's everywhere. It's everywhere.
It's not just the business cards and the website. It's the boxes, right, that you have sitting in your warehouse. You might have 500,000 inventory already of your existing product packaging, right, that you might have to throw away. So it's all of these cost implications down to the parking signs that you may have outside of your facility. You really have to think of all the elements of where this logo exists. Yes, it's getting easier as we're moving more into an e-commerce, digital experience type marketing plays where, you're just changing some logos on some social media platforms and things like that. But if you have a physical product, or you have a restaurant, or you have brick and mortars, let alone multiple of them, your cost implications just for the rollout is massive.
And can you speak to, because that rollout is important, you want to commit to it, right? You don't want to, well, I'm going to replace the logos on these things and that I'll get to later. I mean, once you have made that choice, you have to do it, right? You don't want to confuse people.
Right. You start devaluing the brand if you take a slow, phased approach to that rollout.
Right.
Right. You have to, ideally in our world, when we're making these types of recommendations, especially in the retail world, which it gets very expensive in the logistics side of this, is you want to have that brand change overnight. Right? You want to have that press release go out. Hey, we just changed our identity, here's our new brand, blah, blah, blah. And then you want the next time that customer enters your store, interacts with you, it's that all-new experience. Right. It's that all-new brand. You don't want to do a slow rollout where you have all of a sudden your employees wearing the right logo to Polo, but the product they're buying is still incorrect, or their business cards are still incorrect. You kind of want to do that overnight. So it's a lot of work, it's a lot of planning, it's a lot to go through. But where I was going with this is you can do an evolution of your brand without even touching your identity. It's okay to update your tone. It's okay to change your personas and involve with the marketplace. It's okay to do these incremental changes that don't always necessarily impact the visual outcome of that brand expression. Right? So, because again, a brand is really that full personification of that customer experience, and any business should always be evaluating what that customer experience is and how they can improve it. Make sure they're easy to do business with. Make sure they're driving for their brand values, and those values can change. That tone can change. The phone scripts can change. The products can change. You don't always have to touch the identity.
That's good advice. I'm sure that's welcome news to some of our business owners.
Yes.
They want to do the whole thing all at once. I have a few minutes left, but I do want to touch on the fact that, we're the Chamber of Commerce, so we serve businesses, but brands aren't always just for a business. There is a personal brand that, a lot of people we're seeing more and more. They're creating their own personal brand. Can you speak to that for just a couple of minutes?
Yeah.
When is that necessary, and how do you go about that?
It's really a personal choice, right? And so especially with small businesses, when we're looking at their company brand, they oftentimes try to align it to them, right? And so I try to have that conversation with them when they're rebranding their business of, is this really about you?
Yeah.
Right? I understand that this business is your baby, but is it really about you? And typically it's not. Right?
It's a hard question to ask.
It is a really hard question to ask, and I understand there's egos at play, and you built this business from the ground up. It's your child. Right? And it carries a lot of the same values and attributes that you have as a person. It mirrors you, but it's not about you, right? So that's where we start seeing over the past, especially the past 15 years, we've started to see with the whole social media influencer plays, speaking engagements are now larger than ever. You're seeing more CEOs doing independent webcasts. So personal brands are really starting to take off. And we do a lot of that work with especially people who are aspiring authors, aspiring brand influencers, or people that want to be the face of their brand, right? So that's where that really, really comes into play. But we also, a lot of times, get a lot of people in the C-suite that are getting ready or being nurtured by other employers. So that's where they'll come and go, hey, yeah, I want to invest some money in developing my personal brand. Because when you're job seeking, especially, just as an individual, you want your resume, your LinkedIn, if your social media, all of that needs to be consistent. You don't have to be a marketer. You don't have to be a sales rep. You could be going for any position, may that be an inventory manager or somebody working the dock at a warehouse. How you're perceived by employers is that personal brand. So you want to be careful with things that you're posting on social media, right? As a whole, which is a whole other topic. But you want to be careful with what you're doing, especially if you're job seeking. Is that tone consistent? Do you have a certain photo style when you're posting on Instagram? We see a lot of that in marketers and sales reps and CEOs, but that also applies to the everyday man, right? So if you can, having your own feel to who you are really helps that extension digitally.
Interesting. It's a lot of stuff to think about.
It's a lot of stuff to think about.
You left us with a lot of great feedback, information to get started, and you are a Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce member.
Sure.
So if anyone wants to reach you, you are in our member directory on our website. What's the Mitosis website?
We are at mitosiscreative.com.
Got it. All right. Tyler, thank you so much for being with us
Thank you so much,
today.
Holly.
I really appreciate your insight. If you want to keep up to date with the business community in the Dayton region, don't forget to follow the Dayton Area Chamber of Commerce on social media. We are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. And we'll keep you up to date via our e-newsletter. You can sign up for that on our website as well, DaytonChamber.org. Thanks so much for being with us today. Stay tuned for a brief message from our President and CEO, Phil Parker.
Today's program is directed to those businesses, especially small local companies, that want to better clarify their product or service roles in the buying community. Whether your company provides services or a specific set of manufactured products, it can be hard to identify yourself with all the competition or noise in the marketplace. Branding, as I hope you've discovered or strengthened your understanding through today's program, is way more than just picking a logo or a font or company colors. Yes, it might be part of the branding package, but the real importance of branding your company or products is to create awareness, create a value proposition, create a vision, differentiate yourself from others, or all of the above. We're pleased to have hosted several professionals in the marketing and sales industry today to help you better understand why you should spend your time and resources creating a brand that will help you distinguish your business from others, especially your competition. There are a number of excellent resource people who can help you and our active chamber members right here in our region. We're happy to refer you to today's presenters or others who can help you grow your business. Thank you for watching today's program on the Chamber's Business Connection series.